Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. You're listening to the Networking RX podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for subscribing. Last time I spoke, about a week ago, I introduced the concept of big talk. I've talked about small talk all the time. Small talk is important. Small talk is vital for kicking off relationships. Small talk is vital for reconnecting with relationships. What is small talk? Small talk is simply those little conversations we have at the front end, generally, of conversations, or somewhere mixed in that really aren't really of substance. It might be about the weather, it might be about the game, it might be about what somebody's wearing, hobbies they have, little things like that. That's small talk. And if you stop and listen to conversations, if you stop and pay attention to the conversations you're having, small talk is there. Small talk gets a bad name because people think it's a waste of time. It's not. It's important. It's important to establishing rapport. It's important to little things that happen in our brains to help us have relationships and build trust. That's the thing behind small talk. Now, again, I've done a series of episodes on small talk throughout the Networking RX podcast. We're into the 400s now. I can't even tell you how many different times I spoke on it, but I have. And if you want, go back and listen and try and find the small talk episodes, if you will. I introduced the concept of big talk, however. Big talk. What's big talk? Big talk is the conversations that we tend to have with the people we have relationships with, where the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. Obviously we can talk about politics and people who differ on politics. That's certainly one form of conversation that can be big talk. Other sorts of big talk that are out there, it might be a conversation with a vendor about a bill. That's a big talk. Or with an employer about getting a raise. Or about a roommate not eating your food. Those are conversations where stakes are high. Maybe not horribly high, depending upon the situation, but it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a fun conversation. That's big talk. And handling big talk is important as well. And as I shared last time, there's really a couple of ways of handling big talk. Really three. One, just avoid it. Just avoid it. And if you think in terms of when humans are threatened, it's fight or flight. We're threatened, we'll fight or we'll flee. And the fleeing is not having a conversation. And not having a conversation can manifest itself in lots of different ways. One is not return an email, not return the Zoom, not just totally avoid having a conversation at all. The other is someone speaking at us and us not responding at all. And that's the flight. Now, that doesn't make the problem go away. That doesn't keep your roommate from eating your leftover pizza. That doesn't get you the raise. It doesn't allow you to clear up the billing mishap that you might have with a vendor or one of your clients might have with you. Those problems don't go away. So that's the first way. It's just avoiding the conversations. And in time you can't do it. The second way is just to handle it poorly. And we talk of fight or flight. The fight aspect of it is meeting threat with threat. So harsh words lead to harsh words. Yeah, I ate your pizza because you did this. paid for toilet paper. I don't know. These things can get stupidly out of control in a nonsensical way, and almost at times make less sense than small talk makes. But that's what the fight aspect of it will do. We're kind of hardwired to either run from threats or meet them head on, one or the other. So the first two, avoid it, which is the flight, or meet threat with threat, the fight. But the third is to handle it properly. And when we're met with threat, is to kind of de-escalate that threat. And that's the gist of this conversation here today, is not shrinking from big talk, but not rising up to meet it at the level it might be coming at us either. Now, there's a wonderful book out there, I mentioned it last week, called Crucial Conversation, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High, written by Patterson, Grenny, McMillan, and Switzler. Wonderful book. I'm not going to go through every aspect of the book. I recommend, if you are in business, if you're a manager, well, anybody in business should pick it up and read it. It's just packed with insight as to how to handle crucial conversations. We have a lot of small talk conversations. We should have a lot of small talk conversations, but we have big talk conversations as well. And again, we can't avoid these problems. Meeting threat with threat is not productive long term, but you need to figure out a way to navigate these conversations in a constructive manner. There are people out there that are great with big talk conversations. They're able to not necessarily come to agreement, but come to understanding as to what the other person's saying and share what they have to say. Again, it doesn't mean they're going to agree, but they do a better job of figuring out how to get all the information out there. Now, as it talks about in the book, Crucial Conversation, we're just designed wrong. Humans are designed wrong. Well, I shouldn't say that. We have survived for eons as a species. And much of our early existence, if we've been around for 100,000 years, 97% of it, 95% for sure, which, 95,000 years, that's a long time, and that's generations after generations after generation, if you stop and consider that early humans really didn't live much past 30. There were a lot of perils, a lot of disease. We're living a long time now, but back in the day, prehistoric times, we didn't live long. So there were a lot of generations, a lot of iterations of the human species, and countless numbers of generations. There was this genetic shaping of the human drive, and again, it gets back to this flight or fight. And that's how we survived. If it was a situation we determined that we could prevail, we would stop and fight. Or backs to a wall, we would fight. But if we thought that the threat was too great, we would flee. And those were the two responses, as I've indicated. So we're kind of hardwired to really have one of those two responses. So let's quickly move the conversation over to the human brain. And the human brain really there's a lot to the human brains, but in general there are three layers to it. There's the lizard brain, right? The only thing the lizard brain is about is finding food, reproducing, just survival. There's a level of our brain. Our heart beats. We don't consciously make our heart beat. It just beats. The body is self-regulating. It's self-healing. The brain takes care of that. It's on a very, very subconscious level. We don't even know what's going on. Then there's kind of the mammalian layer of the brain, and that's where this fight or flight is housed. And that's how not just the human species, but lots of species have this second brain layer. You know, crocodiles have just that one little eat, reproduce, sit in the sun, that's it. But mammals tend to have a higher order to them. And so it's got this second layer of the brain, and that's where the fight or flight is housed. Humans have a third layer, the neocortex. And the neocortex is the portion of the brain that allows me to talk and you to understand what I'm saying. It allows us to reason through things. It allows us to tie our shoes. It allows us to do all sorts of things. Now, the difference between, let's not worry about the reptilian brain, but let's compare the mammalian brain with the neocortex. The mammalian brain is lightning fast. It just makes decisions, and we have survived because of that. You couldn't sit and analyze a situation if a saber-toothed tiger was nearby. You needed to just act. I'm going to fight, or I'm going to flee. One or the other. You just acted. You don't even think about it. And that's still with us. The neocortex is a much slower portion of the brain. It's a much slower portion of the brain. We stop, we think, we analyze, we go through all sorts of iterations and different options as to what is what. And that's important as well. The problem is that it's slow, and often it's that mammalian brain, that quick thinking brain that just, we're threatened. We're going to, fight or flight, just like that. Well, what they talk about in the book Crucial Conversations is they talk about a lot of things, but they talk about a way to conquer this fight or flight, because it's there. And really what they have you do is they have you address, you basically become very habitual at essentially taking a deep breath, counting to 10, engaging the neocortex. Because the thing about the brain is it really can only have one conscious thought at a time. It can only be really doing one thing at a time. And when your mammalian brain has you running away in fear at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're not engaging your neocortex necessarily, at least not effectively. But if your neocortex is going, what it does is it quiets that mammalian portion of the brain. So in the book Crucial Conversations, with how they, and again, there's a lot to this book. I mean, this is not a 50-page book. I'm not nearly doing it justice. It's a couple hundred pages, and every chapter kind of walks through all of this stuff. In fact, there are entire training programs on Crucial Conversations. It's really kind of a movement, if you will. But just to summarize, to get you thinking about this, in the book Crucial Conversations, what they say is to succeed in crucial conversations, aka big talk, you must really care about the interests of others and not just your own. And what they're really doing is they're really advocating when you feel threatened, when you feel that crucial conversation coming on. And we can all, it talks about in the book how to spot it, but I think we all kind of know, hey, I'm in a crucial conversation. What they advocate doing is that you stop and really ask yourself 3 questions, and they call it start with the heart questions. The 3 questions are, what do I want for me? What do I want for others? And what do I want for the relationship? And really kind of thinking that through. Now, certainly sometimes we are caught off guard, and it's hard to, get yourself engaged in that thinking. And there's nothing wrong with just saying, listen, I'm just not in a, there's nothing wrong with fleeing, but saying I want to come back to this. I'm not I'm not in a good place to have this conversation right now. And most people will respect that. And if they don't, I guess go quiet and go silent. But just say, listen, I'm not in a position to have this conversation right now. I'm not in a mood. I'm not whatever it is. But if you're able to have the conversation, or once you re-engage in the conversation, continue to cycle through your head, in this crucial setting where the stakes are high, opinions vary, emotions are high. Asking yourself, what do I want for me? I want them to stop eating my leftover pizza. And I know that's kind of a silly thing, but I mean, those are stupider fights. Fights arose over stupider things, I should say. But what do I want for me? I don't want my pizza being eaten. What do I want for others? You know what? I want to have a good relationship with my roommates. I want, or it might be, what do I want? I want a raise. What do I want for my boss? I want my boss to realize that I will be a happier, more productive person if I get this money. And then asking, what do I want for the relationship? Well, I want us to continue to be roommates. We're only freshmen. And I want this to last another 3 years and have a good relationship ongoing. Or, you know what, I want to continue to work here. I like the work. I like the clients. I like, I like lots about this. I just don't feel I'm being paid enough, being paid fairly. But I want the relationship to continue. Now, there's nothing key to these questions necessarily. They're important to the ultimate relationship, right? But the trick with respect to answering these questions is simply this, is when you stop and really think through the answers. And when I say think through, the mammalian brain is lightning fast. So to stop and say, and just think through in 15, 30 seconds, what do I want for me? What do I want for others? What do I want for the relationship? That's what I mean, stop and think about these things. And that's 15 seconds is not a lot of time. 30 seconds is not a lot of time. But what that does when you engage the neocortex is it silences the mammalian brain. You're not faced up against a saber-toothed tiger. You're up against a roommate eating your leftover pizza. You're up against, you're up against a boss who you want to pay you more. Somebody you maybe respect, somebody you otherwise enjoy working for. So you shouldn't feel this threat, this fight or flight. Again, it's not a saber-toothed tiger. So there's nothing wrong with taking a pause and giving yourself 15 seconds, 30 seconds to stop and think through. What do I want for me? What do I want for others? What do I want for the relationship? And what that does is it quiets the whole notion of fight or flight. I'm not going to walk away from this conversation. I don't need people eating my leftover pizza. I don't want people eating my leftover pizza. I'm not going to abandon the notion that I really feel like I deserve a raise. I've been here 3 years. I've done all these things. They're making money off of me. I feel like I deserve a raise. But when you're starting to have that conversation in your head, and it's the neocortex, you're not running away from it. You're not engaging a threat, a perceived threat, with a higher threat. You're engaging the neocortex, and what that's going to allow you to do is allow you to share additional information, to get your feelings out, and allow them to get their feelings out in a calm sort of a way. And that will help you navigate these big talk moments, or the crucial conversation, as the book talks about. So quickly, when you're in a situation where it's, stakes are high, opinions vary, emotions are running high, stop and ask these 3 questions. What do I want for me in the situation? What do I want for others? And what do I want for the relationships? Again, I recommend that you grab the book crucial conversations, tools for talking when stakes are high, and give it a read or give it a listen if you're into audiobooks. But it's a good book for anybody who has lots of relationships with people.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.